Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. Children assume adults will protect them. That's the contract. In today's episode, Teresa and I discuss the moral responsibility adults carry when powerful individuals are accused of harming the vulnerable. Today's episode is not about politics. It's about courage, accountability, and refusing to normalize abuse. Teresa and I explore historical examples of adults who risked everything to protect others. And we ask today's question, what does courage look like? If you've been feeling the weight of recent headlines, this conversation is for you. Listen, reflect, act. Hello, everybody. I'm Lou. Welcome to Earrings Off.
And I'm Teresa. Today's conversation is layered. It's reflective. It's about something deeper than the headlines.
Today, we're talking about the sacred contract between adults and children, the unspoken agreement that when a child enters this world, the adults will stand guard.
And what happens spiritually, culturally, morally when that guard falls asleep?
Children are born into dependence. They arrive trusting. They don't question whether adults are worthy of authority. They just assume it.
A child's worldview is simple. The big people keep me safe.
And that trust is sacred. It's fragile. It is perhaps the most vulnerable currency in society. When we hear allegations involving powerful individuals harming the vulnerable, the shock many feel isn't just about the acts, it's about the rupture of that sacred contract.
Because power is supposed to shield, not exploit. Authority is supposed to cover, not consume.
Exactly. And when it does the opposite, something destabilizes in all of us. We feel unsteady. The ground beneath us shakes. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, child sexual abuse impacts millions. This isn't rare. It's woven into the fabric of society in ways that are deeply uncomfortable to acknowledge.
It should be rare, right? It should
Yeah,
not even exist.
right.
Well, which means this isn't about a single scandal. It's about a system of silence that has allowed harm to echo across generations.
And Teresa, I think this is hitting me so hard because, I used to be a child protective services hearings manager,
Yeah.
and I ran the division that heard child abuse cases for the state of Virginia. And all of this is just coming back, as I remember cases that I heard, evidence that I reviewed. It's been quite triggering to hear everything that we've been hearing lately. But what I want to talk about is silence. Silence is often framed as neutrality, but silence too has weight. Silence has consequence.
Silence creates atmosphere, and children grow inside the atmosphere we create.
If the atmosphere says protect the powerful, Children learn their pain ranks lower than reputation. Mm, mm, mm. If the atmosphere says, don't rock the boat, children learn that comfort matters more than truth.
And here's the abstract but real part. Every time society minimizes harm because the accused is influential, wealthy, charismatic, or politically useful, we tilt the moral axis slightly off center.
Mm. And over time, that tilt becomes a collapse. We cannot afford collapse when it comes to children. We can't do that. We can't afford it.
So, what does it mean to refuse silence? History gives us a glimpse.
Well, let's begin with Harriet Tubman. She was enslaved. She escaped. Now, think about that. She escaped. And then she returned repeatedly to rescue others. Many of those were children. That's courage.
She understood something profound. Freedom is incomplete if the vulnerable remain captive.
Yeah. Her courage wasn't loud, it wasn't displayed on social media or in the news. It was quiet, strategic, relentless. She weaponized her bravery for protection.
Another example, Lou, is Oscar Schindler, a
Hmm.
man embedded within a corrupt system who chose to subvert it from the inside to save over 1,000 Jewish people, many of them children.
Hmm. He leveraged access to protect innocence instead of shielding himself.
And then there's Ruby Bridges, a 6-year-old child walking into a hostile environment to attend school.
But you know what? As brave as she was, and deserving of all of our esteem and respect and gratitude. But I want to focus on the adults, the federal marshals who escorted her, the parents who allowed her to go, the teacher who stayed. They stood between hatred and a child. That's guardianship. That's courage. That's standing up.
History also gives us quieter examples that feel just as powerful.
Like Irina Sindler, who smuggled approximately 2,500 Jewish children out of the Warsaw Ghetto during World War II. She hid their names in jars buried in the ground so families could be reunited later. She was creative in doing what she needed to do to help reunite families. And there have been instances all throughout history. I read something recently in the New York Times about Asian children being adopted um, by U.S. families and not being able to find their birth families.
Well, about Irina, she protected identity. She preserved lineage. She risked execution to shield children.
Yeah. And what about Frederick Douglass? He was widely known as an abolitionist. He consistently advocated for the protection of black families who were torn apart by slavery.
He used his voice as a weapon against exploitation. Courage doesn't always look like rescue missions. Sometimes it looks like sustained advocacy.
Now, Teresa, let's contrast that with abdication. Abdication is when adults decide Protection is inconvenient.
when power becomes intimidating instead of accountable.
When we say as adults, that's too complicated, that's above my pay grade, I don't want to get involved. But children, they don't understand bureaucracy. They do understand safety or the lack of it.
And here's the truth: influence should increase responsibility. The more power, the more power someone has, the more transparent they really should be.
Yeah. Power is a magnifier, it reveals character, it tells us who you really are.
So, what does courage look like in our ordinary lives, Lou?
Well, it looks like refusing to normalize inappropriate behavior around children. It looks like listening when a child speaks, even if the truth disrupts your comfort. I can't tell you how many cases I saw when I served in that role of adults just refusing to believe a child when the evidence could not have been more clear that the abuse occurred. It looks like calling your congressional representatives and expressing that transparency and child protection policies, they matter to you. They're important to you, and you vote based on that.
Full stop, Lou. Full stop on that one. It looks like supporting child advocacy organizations, voting with children in mind, having hard conversations in your community.
And Teresa, perhaps most importantly, at the end of the day, it requires that we look at ourselves, that we examine our own silence, and that we are truthful with ourselves about what we see when we choose to remain silent when children are being harmed.
Children enter the world believing adults are protectors. That belief is and should be sacred.
And sacred things require guardians.
History honors those who stood between danger and innocence.
The question is, when this chapter of history is written, where will we stand?
Will we be counted among the silent?
Or among the guardians? Teresa and I have some questions that we want you to ponder. In what spaces in your life, whether professional, spiritual, social, might courage require you to speak when it would be easier for you to stay silent?
What tangible action can you take this month to advocate for children's safety? Contacting a representative, supporting legislation, volunteering, or using your platform to demand accountability.
Again, courage is required. And we're going to remind you once again what it looks like. Refusing to normalize inappropriate behavior around children. You know what that looks like. Listening when a child speaks and not being so quick to dismiss what they're saying or to tell them they're confused or doesn't understand what was happening. Supporting child advocacy organization and voting with children's safety in mind.
Of course, it might mean contacting your congressional representatives and saying, transparency in matters involving children matters to me. Accountability matters to me. Child protection policy matters to me. You don't have to scream, but you have to speak.
And Teresa and I beg of you, use your platform. Whether it's 5 followers or 50,000, silence is not neutrality, it is permission. That's it for us today here on Earrings Off. And we hope that today's episode has encouraged you to be silent no more.
Take good care.